Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
I
I must have two disclaimers. People are, some of them who I know, they commented on why I don't have my turban and my flowing robes and why I'm looking like one of Dr. Hassani's slaves. It would be a great honor to be considered as one of his slaves, as a matter of fact. The reason being that I think the time has come to pull up these sleeves and actually get down to work. So this is my slave dress. The second thing is this voice of mine, which looks like I'm just about to attain puberty, but that was about 5 decades ago. This is the result of a bug that I picked up yesterday. Now, I am in a hotel which is sandwiched between the Buckingham Palace and Scotland Yard. So I'm not going to speculate on where this bug must have come from. Now, so therefore my presentation is about what I'm calling critical changes for those who lead in a time of change. Leadership is, is one of my specializations, and that's what I would like to talk about. That's about me, which you don't want to know. The world today, my brothers and sisters and elders, is something, one of the major issues of the world today is the speed of change, and therefore tomorrow will be, for better or worse, but it will be more. Now, what is the world today? I'm back to my addiction to data. As many mobile phones as people, 33% of the world is online. Facebook has claims to have 1 billion active users. YouTube adds 100 hours of video per minute. Some of those are mine. Twitter has 175 billion messages a day. Some of those are mine. Matter is, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter didn't exist in the year 2000. Collectively, their capitalization, you know what that is. McKinsey's study says that the United Kingdom took 100 years to double its economic output during the Industrial Revolution. The United States took 50 years, India took 16, and China 12 without any colonies. What are therefore the implications for leadership today going forward? That is a map of the world. The countries colored in white are those that the United Kingdom did not invade. The others learnt English. The WIDER study, and WIDER is one of these nice UN organizations which have very long names. They say that 1% of the adults in the world own 40% of global assets. The richest 10% of adults account for 85% of assets globally. The bottom half of the world population, you're talking about roughly, say, 3-something billion people, own less than 1% of global assets. The rich, therefore, do own the world. But what kind of world? A world where 1 billion people go to bed hungry, 2.8 billion do not have clean water, and 2.3 billion are without sanitation. Is that a world you want to own? And my belief is that only effective school education, not university, not colleges, effective school education can change this. Question is, do you? And I want to. I believe you do. That's why you're here. Social responsibility, therefore, call it CSR, call it what you want. Question, is it progress? We like to think of ourselves as being very progressive. Is it progress when 75% of the population is short of food and water? I envisage that day when archaeologists of the time will dig up a mound which will be our ruins. And the thing that they will wonder about is how people who knew so much managed to still destroy the world. It's amazing. Our scientific knowledge is, we at least consider it to be at its peak. Then why on earth are we destroying our environment? That's amazing. People who are ignorant, if they do that, one can understand. But people who know what's going wrong, they still allow it to go wrong. Why? And I believe that school education has a huge part to play, especially faith-based education, because faith is the anchor, not necessarily Muslim faith. Faith is the anchor that anchors these things. An education which is not anchored in faith, does not have ethics and morals as the foundation, is like a cancer cell. Growth for the sake of growth is the philosophy of a cancer cell. People, therefore, my brothers and sisters and elders, remember us not by what we consumed, but by what we contributed. 4 changes, therefore, that we must make. Number 1, change our attitudes. Number 2, change our perspective. Number 3, change our language. And number 4, change our behavior, effectively change ourselves. Very quickly, attitude. question of how do I define myself, Dr. Hassani, in his absolutely brilliant and amazing address, talked about the issue of identity. I think it's very important. How do I define myself? We all are focused in the world today on getting things. I want to get this, I want to get that, get a good job, get money, this, that, and all that. We forget that what we get depends on how we act. Results depend on behavior, and how we act, very often, if not all the time, depends on what we believe about ourselves. So who I am, how I define myself, defines what I will do, which defines what I will get. And that is something that we need to change. How do I define myself? Number 2, values drive behavior, and behavior drives results. And therefore, if we are unhappy with the results, making cosmetic changes on the results will not help. We got to go down below and say, how do I see myself? Whether I see myself in terms of my religious identity, whether I see myself in terms of my racial identity, or whatever the case might be, how do I see myself? What do I believe about myself? Second thing to change is perspective. Perspective is a function of distance. How do I define others? How do I define myself? And how do I define others? We need to move from right and wrong to different. Ta'arafu, from right and wrong to different. Incidentally, it's easier to view racial differences as different, much more difficult to view religious differences as different alone. Because we have been brought up in the tradition that everyone except myself is going to go into the hellfire. And that does not work. I do not want to go into heaven alone. It's not a nice thing to be lonely even there. Because all prejudice is based on subjective perception of right and wrong. All stereotyping is based on prejudice. But the reality is not everything is right and wrong. There are right and wrong things in the world, but not everything is right and wrong. We need to change, therefore, our language, because language shapes attitude. We need to move from tolerance, which is a dirty word, to appreciation, which is a good word. We all talk about we should be tolerant. How many of you are tolerant to dark chocolate? We appreciate dark chocolate. We love dark chocolate. I love it. We're not tolerant. We tolerate things that are basically unpleasant, but I have to lump it, therefore I tolerate it. Right? Now tolerance therefore implies dislike. Stop the word. Appreciation. Appreciation comes from respectful interest. The example again of Dr. Hassani, where he said, I know you as my enemy. I mean, that we're not talking about that. We're saying respectful interest. Can I seriously look at you, at your religion, at your difference in a respectful way? That is very, very important for us to do that. And that is why learning is the key to appreciation. Zero tolerance, therefore, for ignorance. That's the motto that I would like to live by. Because from tolerance to hatred is one step. From appreciation to hatred is the opposite side. Very difficult to hate somebody you actually seriously appreciate. And that's the reason we need to change the language. Last one is we need to change our behavior, because only behavior gives results. Beliefs do not give results. How we act on those beliefs give results. And we need to move, therefore, from a position of conflict and being contradictory to each other, saying me versus you, to me plus you versus the problem. My brothers and sisters and elders, you and I know that the problems that we face, whether it's this country or the world, they are not problems which are isolated to one group. These are problems which affect all of us. Even if they come, or even if they seem to emanate from one particular group, believe me, everyone is actually affected by that problem. And therefore, it is in our interest to collaborate, to get rid of the problems, rather than playing the blaming game and rather than playing the game of pointing fingers. Collaboration, therefore, is the door and communication is the key. How do we talk to each other? How do we speak to each other in a way that people understand us? And by this, I don't mean accent, I don't mean language, you know what I mean. The willingness, therefore, has to be to transcend boundaries, to share uniqueness, no criticism, no discrimination, and all of this has to be taught young. That's the reason why school education is the absolute foundation. I want to say to you, and this is probably the last slide of mine, which is people listen with their eyes. People do not listen with their ears. People listen with their eyes. They don't care what you say until they see what you do. Thank you very much. I was given 1 hour. I finished, I think, in 10 minutes. Yes, pleasure.